Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. It's a pleasure to have all of you joining. It must have been a long day, especially for those of us logging in from East Africa and from Nigeria in West Africa. So just before we start, it would be good to have an idea of where we're all logging in from. So could you just, in the chat box, so I'm going to start. I'm logging in from Lekki in Lagos. So including my panelists as well, because we know where you're based, but for all we know, you might have jumped on a private jet somewhere else to join us for this webinar. So let's all just pop in the chat box where we're all coming from. Oh, I can see Accra, Ghana. Okay, Sophia, I can see Lekki, I can see Ghana, I can see Lekki, okay. Lekki, I can see Ghana, Nairobi, Shola, Sierra Leone, Mozambique, Surulere. So Lagos is taking the lead. We know they carry last, like we say. I can see Ghana. So as you're just joining, we want to have an idea of where we're all logging in from. Fatima is from Tunisia, Mozambique. Yes, so Sophia, my sister. Yes, so from Nigeria. Ghana is raining. Oh, Emily from Canada. Is Ghana raining? I'm not sure about that. I am not sure about that, if Ghana is raining. So for those of us that are just joining, just pop in the chat box where you're joining from. And also what I'm going to do now, some of us I know we're very familiar with using the Zoom platform because of the pandemic. So just before we start, okay, we have Abigail all the way from the US. Wow, Sierra Leone. I have a lot of my brothers and sisters that are joining us from Africa, from across the continent. So I've seen Tunisia, that's the north. I've seen Mozambique, the south. I've seen Kenya, which is east. I haven't seen Central Africa, but I have seen West Africa. I've seen Sierra Leone, I've seen Ghana, I've seen Nigeria. I'm hoping that we'll have some of our brothers and sisters join us from Central Africa. Okay, so like I said earlier on, welcome to today's webinar. The webinar will just be roughly for 30 minutes. And for those of us that are not too familiar with Zoom, your microphone has been muted. so that there won't be any interference and we can have a free-flowing conversation with no static and no background noise. But should you want to communicate, you'll see that there's a chat box. We're already communicating with the chat box. So you can drop some of your comments, your contributions in the chat box. And please remember that you should highlight on all panelists and attendees, not just on one person, because if you select all panelists, only the panelists will get it. But if you put all panelists and attendees, everybody in the group will be able to see the comments or the contribution that you have. Should you want to actually contribute, there's a raise hand button. It'll be good to click on that. And then myself or my co-pilot, Baba, will call on you so that you can put your hand down and then ask the question. So for the Q&A, we know that we'll have lots of questions. There's a Q&A function as well, and that's it highlighted on the screen. So for your questions, you can drop your questions in the Q&A function. So that way it doesn't get swamped with the comments, the contributions in the chat box. Okay. So that's what it looks like. You can click on there and then also send. And if you don't want your name to show, you can click on the send anonymously button there. And then that way it just says anonymous. It wouldn't have your name. But if you don't mind, most times during the webinars, we will call the person that is contributing or asking the question by name. But if you don't want that, you can click on that as well. And after the webinar is over and we're finished with everything, if you want to log out, just click on the leave button and you'll be able to log out and continue. Okay, so thank you very much, everybody. Thank you in particular for my panelists. My name is Nneka Okekearu. I work at the Enterprise Women Center as a Deputy Director and also head the Gender Desk. And March is a month for women. March is specifically for International Women's Day. And this webinar is being brought together by the L&D Africa platform, so L&D Learning and Development Platform Africa, to bring us together so that we can have conversations around learning and development and how it affects us as women. So women in professional fields and women entrepreneurs. And to do justice to the topic around learning and development, I have with me a brilliant panel of Amazons, is what I would like to call them, from different fields. I have with me Catherine, I have Cathy, I have Luisa, I have Pearl. And I would have said, oh, let me start to read out their bio, but I'm not going to do that. So what I'm going to do for the first 2-3 minutes, I'd like to call on Catherine just to do a 1 minute intro of yourself. And from Catherine, we'll move on to Cathy, Pearl, and then Luisa. Catherine.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening from Nairobi because it's at night here, and good afternoon to everybody else who's in West Africa joining us today. It's indeed an honor to be here talking to you this day on our role as learning and professional people on matters that are going to be helpful and make it easy for us women in the workplace. Catherine is a strategic learning and development and knowledge management expert. So it's training, knowledge conservation, and knowledge dissemination for the companies within the Kenyan industry. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Catherine, for that. And I'm moving swiftly over from East Africa all the way to the United Kingdom. Cathy.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. So I'm Cathy. My background is predominantly in corporate learning and development, mostly behavioural and the leadership side of learning and development, working for organisations like Tesco, Coke, Expedia. And more recently, at the beginning of this year, I moved into a role as the Chief Learning Officer for the Learning and Performance Institute. So very new in role, but excited to be part of the business and working with some of our great global partners as well.
All right, thank you. It's a pleasure to have you here, Cathy. All the way from UK, I'm coming back onto the continent. I'm going all the way down south
Hello, good evening. Good afternoon to everyone. My name is Calys-Tagoe, and I'm the Learning and Development Manager for Fidelity Bank. I'm excited to be here this evening, and it's my desire that we'll learn from each other. And at the end, we will move out of the platform with that action to cause a change around the women agenda. I would also want to thank the Rainbow Consult team and then the L&D Africa team for organizing this, putting this together. And I believe we'll all leave here with a lot of information to action. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pearl. And I'm moving over to Luisa. You're muted, Luisa. Hello, Luisa, can you hear me?
Yes. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry about this. I'm Luisa Santos. I'm from Mozambique. And thank you so much for inviting me. It's an honor to be with you this evening. My background is in agriculture, actually. I've been teaching at the university, Eduardo Mondiane in Mozambique for many years. So I've been I have more experience with the students, BSc, master students, but also I've been training farmers and extension personnel on agriculture and especially on pest management. And recently also within the university, we have started a program for development training of academic staff on management, academic management at university level. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. This promises to be a very engaging and interesting conversation. So we have the four Amazons, like I like to call them, with experiences that transcend from Unilever, research, agro-allied, working with the Kenya Chamber of Commerce in the case of Catherine, who has over 1,000 members in the Kenyan Chamber of Commerce, and she's in charge of that role and their training. So I think the first question I want to ask would be around us as women. So we occupy diverse roles, we have occupied diverse roles, and if I look at the four of you together on this panel today, we're looking at probably anything close to 60 years experience if I ramp everything together. And this question actually is for every single one of you. What are some of the challenges that you have faced specifically in the workplace because of your gender as a woman? So that would be across board. So I know, Pearl, you are in Fidelity Bank now, but before then used to manage grants at Unilever. I know Cathy has been in hospitality. She's been in British Gas, Tesco. Luisa as a researcher, Catherine in your role in East Africa, and all the work that you had to do around content, curriculum, and now the Chamber of Commerce. What are some of the things that you had to face and surmount only because you're a woman across your diverse roles? And Luisa, you can start first because you spoke last.
Okay, thank you. Well, I think the challenges have evolved along the time. I think it's very different when you are a young woman starting your career and when you are a more older and more experienced. I think the challenges will change a bit. But I would say for me, definitely one of the biggest challenges was to balance family life with the work challenges. I think for us women, it's always big pressure into especially children, if you have children. So I would say that is, for me, was the biggest challenge. And also, I think as you go young, of course, you have some behaviors of, in terms of a little bit patronizing you, don't taking you very seriously, or thinking that, well, So the type of patronizing attitude, I think, was one of the challenges that I faced, especially when I was starting, when I was younger. I think that was.
All right, thank you. Catherine?
I think for me, earlier on, as I started out, one of the challenges that I faced is that I had to work with a lot of men because of the setting, and they were much older than I was. And here I was as a director of an institute. And the first days, it wasn't too bad. But after a while, it became she's young, she's single, and how do we take instructions from her? And it was difficult to also try and, correct, because as a director, you're supposed to give instructions, you're supposed to manage a human resource. So it was a bit difficult sometimes giving instructions or being heard. And I think that's made or gave me the resolve to try and just get out of my comfort zone, because it can be very unnerving, and it makes the work environment not very peaceful for you, because it becomes toxic emotionally, especially. Not anything else, because if you're not stable emotionally, then you're not going to be able to deliver, no matter how learned you are. So that environment was a bit too much for me. And it was just time to move to the next thing. So I faced that.
Okay, that's very interesting that you say that. And I can see a comment in the chat box. And that's actually something that a lot of women, especially on the continent, seem to face. Do you think it has anything to do with culture or tradition?
I think it's a lot of it is influenced by that, because here you are single. So at that time, who wants to take you seriously? You don't even have a home of your own. So they think, well, what is she going to tell us? So they think you're the problem. So culture, tradition, it has a lot to do with that. And like I said, no matter how learned you are, because some of them at that time were already pursuing their master's, degrees at the time. I hadn't started on mine. And I think that is what made me even resolve that I need to go back to school so that these people can see that I am capable. So culture plays a lot of a big role in trying to put women down, because that's how we were brought up. Our mothers were supposed to be in the kitchen, in the background. You don't have to be in the forefront at all times. So it really if you grow up in that kind of environment, then it becomes difficult to change, because that is what you know. And unless you're exposed, you can't change.
Thank you very much. So now, I know I had that question around challenges for everybody, but with what Catherine is just talking about, I'm going to direct this question now to Cathy, and only because you're in the United Kingdom. And I'd like to find out, everything Catherine talked about, culture, tradition, the fact that she has to prove herself more often than the male folk within the workforce. Do we have something similar in the UK?
Yes, I'd say so. I think probably to a different extent. I think the things that you see potentially here may be slightly different in terms of maybe kind of daily microaggressions that you face. I think things like the language people use at work are things that are probably more commonplace in terms of things that are frustrating that you have to deal with. Language being used, people referring to you as sweetheart or something in the workplace, which ultimately undermines you, I guess, in a leadership role particularly. So I think it's sort of probably more on that end. And certainly from my own experience, I think a lot of women I've worked with, including myself actually, have been paid less as well. So that the pay gap is fairly obvious as well when you compare to your male counterparts in the same roles. So probably slightly different kind of challenges actually.
Okay, and that gender parity and that pay gap, it's a conversation we've been having, and we've been told it's going to take quite a number of years before we can bridge that gap. It looks like for every time we appear to be bridging that gap, it's something else is happening, and another gap seems to exist somewhere else, or it looks like we're doing a step forward and then 4 steps backwards.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think until organizations really take it seriously, and don't just treat it as a, that anything around diversity and inclusion as a tick box exercise, but actually it's taken seriously from a senior board level down. Until that happens, we're not going to really see it. And there are some great organizations that are starting to do that and are really leading the way. I've worked with a couple of them over the years actually, and it's been great. I felt very fortunate to be part of that. So I've seen what good looks like, I think, in a company that really does want to tackle it and wants to address it, but there just aren't enough organizations doing that, I don't think.
Okay, all right, thanks a lot for that, Cathy. So Pearl, I just wanted to just do a quick deep dive into, so you're in the banking sector now, and I think your Fidelity Bank is not the Fidelity Bank in Nigeria, right? It's a separate Fidelity. Just to clear that.
Yes, you are right. It's a separate Fidelity.
Just to clear that. So it's Fidelity Bank Ghana.
Ghana Limited, yeah.
Before assuming the role of credit officer, you had to manage grants in Unilever. And you also had various roles within management and around talent, as it were. So what are some of the challenges that you faced in a global brand such as Unilever on the continent, vis-a-vis working for, and I think Fidelity Bank is an African bank, right? It's not
it's a Ghanaian bank.
It's a Ghanaian bank, okay. So could you just give us some insights into some of the challenges that you faced that were similar or different?
In terms of policy concerning women, in all the institutions I've worked with. For Unilever, it was my national service, and then I worked on contracts. And because it's a global institution, some of these things are catered for. So you don't experience any form of discrimination. It may exist, but I personally didn't really encounter that. And then I moved to ProCredit, which is also a German-owned institution. And there also we had policies in place to push women, ensure that women with high potentials are moving into roles. Fidelity Bank is no different because we have a lot of support from the board level through to executive. And it's one key thing we are really focused on driving as a bank to ensure that our women are getting to the top, are also making it out there. But from a personal level, yes, in the course of my career, there was that aspect of how to balance my work life and family life. I started off as a credit officer, and as a loan officer, you needed to go into the field because of the kind of lending we were doing. You needed to go into the field and then inspect businesses, and then you get back and analyze them. But that did not deter me. And interestingly, I actually found myself rising even after a maternity leave. So for instance, between a loan officer to a credit coordinator, I had just resumed from maternity leave. But because of the impact I had in my team and the kind of qualities my supervisors had seen in me, I moved through the ladder. And I had a supporting husband as well who said, I will not take up any additional jobs. I would rather wait. You are moving into this role, you are managing a branch, and therefore you need to spend more time in the branch. So I had that kind of support from my husband as well. So thank you.
Okay, so that's very interesting. You talk about support, and your husband is an African man, right? Because earlier on we're talking, and I asked Cathy that, and Catherine was talking, we were saying, okay, it's because we're Africans, and the culture, the tradition, but your husband is an African, right? He's a Ghanaian.
Yes, he's a Ghanaian.
Okay, very good. So support is critical, and I can see from the chat box. That's something people are actually putting there. So Ibuku is putting there, fantastic support is so critical. Shola had talked about, Shola, and I think Uche is also saying the same thing. So support, very key for us as women. But I just wonder, there's so many men, when they go for roles and they're being interviewed, the conversation is always around the targets. Are they able to meet up? What are the things they're likely to need by way of resources? They're never, ever, ever asked, who's going to take care of the home front? Why is that? And that's a question that most men, not most, all women are asked that question. How are you going to manage? It's a demanding role. And I think those are some of the things that from that earlier conversations that sets the way for these gaps to exist across. I don't know, what are your thoughts? So that would be for you, Luisa, Cathy, Catherine, so not just Pearl.
I think certainly for me, I mean, in the UK, actually, you know, when we're recruiting people and interviewing and things, actually, we can't really ask women that question either. So I think it's probably slightly different here, although, I mean, people do try to ask it in a roundabout kind of way. But they can't sort of overtly ask you, you know, so have you got kids at home and is that going to be a challenge? But people will ask questions. Like I've had a global role probably for the last, I don't know, maybe 15 years. My roles have been global, and you know, some people in interview just ask questions, keep asking the same sort of question about, so is travel going to be okay for you? You know, are you going to be all right traveling? And what they're really getting at is they want to know, do you have kids at home? Is there something at, you know, but you have to just not give in and not give the detail. But actually in the UK, we're not really allowed to kind of ask the really blatant questions like that to men or women, actually.
I think that's something we should adopt here in Africa. But I mean, what are your thoughts, Luisa, Catherine?
I think it really depends on the industry that one is getting into. For example, in industries that are labor intensive, so they want to know that because they'll think, are you going to be able to do the work? Are you going to work shifts? When production is high, of course, you're going to be required to go in there, and you don't want to use the excuse that I have a family, I can't work on Saturdays, I can't do extra shifts. So here, it's a really big question. And some industries, it's all right. But for the labor-intensive industries, that's very critical. It actually shoots you or just puts you off. You're marked down because they think, well, this one will come with so much baggage and we have orders to fulfill. So unfortunately, some industries dictate that those questions are asked. Some are pretty okay, in hospitality, service sector. I think those ones they don't ask that much because what they want is delivery. You know, are you going to be able to work? Are you going to be able to achieve profit line, bottom line? That is what is driving them. I don't care how you do it. I just need my bottom line to work. So it really depends on the industry.
Luisa?
Yeah, I think, well, I've worked all my life for a public university, and I don't think we've asked also this type of questions and in terms of recruitment. But of course, you can see in academic life, especially in our case, where we then have to go and study abroad most of the times. It's really, you see a lot of women that don't take those opportunities as easily as men do. So if you have a male colleague, now they will just go to whatever country and stay whatever many years, and they go by themselves. But for the women, it's not that easy. And then you end up actually to have less women qualified and less women that get their PhD degrees, or if they do, they tend to not leave the country or go to other solutions. So it's really something that I think in terms of our academic life and in the universities, it's a big affects a lot how our career develops. Yeah. So again, the support is really crucial in this situation. If you have a husband that supports you, or a family that really can support you, makes a lot of difference. Agree with that.
Okay, so I think the next question I have would be, so in terms of talking about some of the challenges that we faced, it's been around, being able to juggle the balls, as it were, as a professional, as a woman running a family and a home and all that. But I'm just wondering, with the pandemic, with COVID, do you see some other types of challenges that have started coming up for women? Any new challenge that they're facing now in the workplace as a result of COVID?
Hi, Nneka. Yeah, so let me try the first. Okay, so generally in the workplace, due to COVID, one of the key challenges we have seen is around the work from home. And work from home here, yes, work from home has brought in some positives, but it also has its negatives, where especially you don't have the support system in place, and you have to combine your full-time job with helping the children with their e-learning class, and then you need to also factor in the household chores, because you need to make lunch, you need to think of dinner, and you need to factor in all these activities as part of your daily work. So even though we've had the opportunity to bond with the children, once the support system is missing, then yes, we have a challenge in that regard. And I have personally had a few people calling me and discussing some of these issues with me, and I share with them how I have managed it. Because you need to put in place a structure to ensure that you are delivering on all areas. And you need also to involve your partner in the discussion so that he knows that, yes, we are not in normal time, so your support is required. Fortunately, I have a teenager and then another one who is also much older. So I had a lot of support from them as well, because they understood the times. So they supported their little brother. So I didn't really need to stress myself so much. But yes, there are some people facing some of these challenges. And then the second thing I would like to touch on before I mute my microphone has to do with the use of collaborative tools. I mean, where the world is going now, we are going tech. The technology space is a hot cake. And it's important that we are well prepared for that environment. I know a lot of we women, we are not daring enough to try our hands on some of these collaborative tools, and we'll shy away from using them. But it's important that if, as an L&D person, I notice this, then I need to tailor programs around that for my team members, for my ladies. Unfortunately, in my bank, we have the women's network, and we've started some work with our women. So these are two challenges I just want to quickly touch on around work from home with its challenges, and then technology, our response to technology, the usage of technology. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pearl, for that. Any other person? Any new challenge you see beyond what we already discussed, just because of COVID? So she talked about, balancing work from home vis-a-vis homeschooling the children. Any other thing?
Yeah, I think one other thing that many have faced is stress and burnout completely, because you're working from home, you don't have other people to talk to, especially those who have targets, whose jobs are dictated by weekly, daily targets. And you saw the pandemic, some places were on lockdown, you're not able to meet your customers, you're not able to supply because of one reason or another. So in turn, you look like you're not working. So that is going to affect your overall, performance. When the appraisal comes in, you look like, oh, you didn't deliver. And, you know, some places they'll say, well, you would have been more innovative in how you're going to deliver this work. And I think that has been a major one, because we've, for example, here, we ended up having so many people with mental, you know, issues that they didn't know about. You get so angry, and there are trends of violence in the home. Your spouse probably doesn't understand. Your boss wants you to deliver. You have 6 meetings in a day that are online. You still need to meet the suppliers. You have, like Pearl said, take care of the kids, do their assignments. It's a little bit too much. And it ends up affecting your productivity.
Thank you so much. You know, as we're just talking, I remembered one of my friends, and she works in the UK actually, for a global brand, and she said that with COVID, that they had a new unit that was created, and it was called Mindspace. And what that meant was that they started seeing this same thing you complained about, so burnout, stress, and quite a number of women, more women than men actually, were becoming depressed. So the Mindspace, you could go there and you're allowed to just stay in one corner the days you could go to work and then just cry. There was a noise-proof room if you felt like screaming because you're feeling frustrated to do that. And I found that so interesting because she was going through depression and she didn't know. So by the time she had conversations with the officer in that unit, that was what they said. She was just at the onset of being depressed. So they told her to take time off work. They gave her some things to, give her some resources and things to help her cope with her daily life because she was at home. Her daughter was 7. She was homeschooling her daughter. She was still working, and she's in the financial sector, and they were really very pressured and all that. So I think my next question now would be, for us that were in learning and development as professionals, what can we do to help women in the workplace cope with the new challenges in addition to the old challenges that have been there and are still there that women are facing? What innovations, what solutions, what can we come up with as L&D professionals? So Cathy, you're an LPI, so that's the Learn and Performance Institute. So I think I'll start with you.
Sure.
Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's nice actually in the UK. I am seeing a lot more organisations focusing on this at the moment, which is a positive start to begin with. I think a lot of companies are wondering how to address it. How do they help? They want to help, but they don't know where to go. I do think that learning and development, is also kind of asking the same questions at the moment. I think the organisations that I've seen do this really well. Firstly, and that comes back to my other point really, firstly, they've got engaged leadership teams that want to make a difference. So that is, crucial, I think, and that those leadership teams are role modelling the right behaviours. But I think the things that I've seen done really well by learning and development is actually involving people from the organisation, to those that feel comfortable to share stories. So those that have had lived experience of any kind of discrimination to actually share some stories where they feel comfortable, because it helps other people in the company to be able to relate to it and put some context around it. Because a lot of people, and it does tend to be more men, but also women as well, will deny that there is any sort of sexism in the workplace, and deny that people are being treated differently. And I think that a lot of the time it's just because they don't know. They don't know about it. They've not seen it. They've not heard it. They've not lived it. And so actually by getting people to share those stories, it can really help. I think as well, actually, when we focus on things like programs for women in leadership, which are fantastic, and I think that's definitely something that organizations need to do for a number of reasons, but I do think we tend to miss men out in that as well. And I think that there needs to be an education for men in the organization too around that, because we need male allies effectively to help. This isn't just going to be achieved by upskilling and educating one sex. we need everybody to go through some kind of upskilling actually.
All right, thank you very much. Luisa, do you have any take on that?
No, first, just the last comment I also would like to add. I think also educating men is really very important, and also for us, especially as mothers, educating our boys. I think from an early age, I think it's really crucial, and so I would totally agree with you. I think also going more to the practical and the tools, which is also important in L&D. I think these tools to communicate, to be more effective, you know, from Zoom and so many other things. I think it's also important that that's a role I think we can play and improve the way we work and the efficiency, especially how we work. I think for me personally, it took some time, I think for all of us, to learn, and I'm still learning, and some things I'm doing right, others I don't, and I have to take a long time sometimes to discover how this thing's gonna work. And I think if we can give support also in this technical, more tools for us to be more effective, because now then more than ever we are multitasking, and we really need to be efficient.
Yeah, we are really multitasking. And I read a research that said that, you know, there's nothing, it doesn't really exist, that something is suffering, that you cannot say you are giving equal attention to everything and you're going to get everything done, so that we should stop kidding ourselves and then just focus. Okay, so thank you very much for that. Pearl, do you have any take on that? By way of things, yeah.
Yes, so briefly, I would want to share what we did in my organization. So because of the burnout, the stress level, we had surveys. So there was pulse survey. So we understood what the issue was. We had a clinical psychologist come in. It was a virtual session. We put our people in groups, and she had sessions with us on how to manage stress. And this was everyone, not just women. She's had a session with only women in the past, but this was focused on everyone. And from the L&D space, we also researched, we shared some videos on how to work effectively from home, how to manage stress and all that. And we pushed them to our staff. And these were very, very short videos, 1 minute, 2 minutes, just to support them with how to cope with the situation. So I think these are some of the things we can do. We need to understand the times, and then we are more proactive in responding to the needs of our people. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for that. And I think, so just before I go on, please don't forget to put your question. I can see Uche has put a question in the Q&A box. So if you have questions for either Cathy, myself, Catherine, Luisa, or Pearl, kindly just drop that in the Q&A box. Okay, but you can keep the comments coming. Just before I ask the next question, I can see we had quite a number of comments. So there's a gentleman from Ghana, and he says he's been in L&D for a while, and he agrees that the issue comes up with the mindset and attitude, and he actually prefers working with women, and that he's seeing that once there's courage, that woman has courage to go ahead, that, you know, everything falls into place, and that even the men that probably were not supportive fall in line. So that courage and mindset is like light, and wherever that light comes, that the darkness falls out. And then Frank says that as women in leadership position, we have a background to solve the problems or bring a team to solve. But with the pandemic, we're not able to solve. We're more helpless in the situation. And in some situation, I agree that about to go back in traditional role of women, that's what's happening in Germany. Okay, so this is a question now, and I think that was the same question in the chat, in the Q&A box. This is from Uchi. So it's like, in some cases, you find women leaders not supporting fellow women in the workplace. How do you deal with this? Okay, so that's one question you can put down. I wanted to just read the comments and then pop into the Q&A. And then Robin says that she agrees with Cathy, and that really it's a matter of educating the whole ecosystem. So, and it's something I say in my class, that it's so strange that we constantly are talking to ourselves and we expect to get a change in the challenge. It won't happen. We keep talking to ourselves, that the men have to be involved in that conversation. So Robin agrees with that. So I'm going to go to the Q&A box now. So that question that was put in the Q&A box was actually the first question. So this is the full question now. So how do you deal with female women, female activated bias and subjugation? In some cases, you find women leaders not supporting fellow women in the workplace. That's the first question. And then Elizabeth would want to get more insights on women development programs. Then Elizabeth again, that she's currently at the infant stage of rolling out ideas, and it would help to get that, okay? And then Benjamin is asking, what role does the culture of the organization play in women empowerment? So in no particular order, so I've read out like 3 or 4 questions. So the very first one is around women not supporting other women and having some women activated biases. Who wants to take that one? Cathy, Pearl, Catherine, Luisa? I'll just do mini, more.
All right, I've got it. Sorry, I'll just unmute myself. I mean, it's not an easy one. I don't think there's a simple fix or simple solution here that's a one size fits all either. I think it depends on the individual actually, because I think people have got different reasons for responding the way they respond, and it could be that woman has just never, or the women in that situation have never experienced any bias or discrimination themselves in their own career, so don't understand the need for supporting and championing fellow women in the workplace. It could be the exact opposite. It could be that person or people feel that they've had to work so hard to overcome certain challenges that it's possibly quite a threatening feeling, I guess, to think, how do I, all these other women want to do really well, but I'm doing great. I'm fine. I want to protect my position. So I guess it really depends on someone's motive. It's a difficult question to answer. It's a very good question. And I think generally speaking, overall, just more education around the topic and more sharing of the experiences that other women have had in the workplace might help give other women an idea of what some women are struggling with and what they're going through. I myself haven't faced discrimination through having kids, for example, because I don't have children, but yet I can certainly empathise with friends and colleagues that have, and I totally understand the challenges that they've been through in the work environment. So because they share their stories with me and they tell me, and I see it on a regular basis. So I think maybe it's down to kind of exposure and getting women to understand that other women are struggling for whatever reason and need support.
Okay, thank you very much, Cathy. Anybody else? So the question was how to deal with female women activating the bias and subjugation. In some cases, you find women leaders not supporting fellow women in the workplace. So Cathy has shared, and so it could come from two areas. Either they didn't get that much support, and they're also struggling, or they might feel threatened. Anybody else?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question, and I mean it's valid, because we sometimes have women not wanting to mentor other women to get them to that level, maybe because of what they have gone through. I will see this more as a mindset issue. So it's important that maybe from the HR perspective, we need to find out what the issue is, because that will help us really understand what the barriers are then we can find a way of shifting this woman's mindset and making her know that she has a responsibility towards other women. That conversation may have to happen because it's purely about a mindset, issue. And once you are able to move her gradually to understand where we are going and the need for her to support other women, groom other women, to see the bigger picture, then I think you'll be able to get her to the other side. It may be a difficult task, but it is worth trying, because especially for such women, you find out that they are very solid when it comes to the hardcore objectives. But the truth is you also need them on board. However, culture is very, very important. The value system is critical. So you need to find a way of managing that person and getting that person to your side. And it may take time. It may even require some psychological support as well. So there's a shift.
Okay, I like that you said that. But supposing this particular person, just hypothetically, happens to be the boss, and it's a small organization that has, I don't know, 25 soldiers like mine, 30, 40, less than 50 people, and the person is the boss, and the person is the cause of all this, and it's just a mini. Because you're talking about conversations and things. So who's going to get into that conversation? Because that's actually some of the reality that we face as women.
Unfortunately, for such a boss, she may lose her key staff. Unfortunately, that is where we are. So there's a lot of work we have to do as women ourselves. It's not just about the males, but we as women, we also have a role to play in this to make it work. So unfortunately, once she is the owner and the boss, it may take a lot of effort to get her to have that mindset shift or paradigm shift. And for such a person, she may lose her key staff, unfortunately.
Okay, all right, thank you. Catherine, do you want to have a go at that? Different perspective.
Yes, just to say, I think Pal has nailed it when saying that you lose your key staff when that happens. And unfortunately, there's nothing as powerful as the word of mouth, because it's going to get out there. It's going to get to recruiters. But hey, there's such a high turnover in company X because the boss is, whatever syllables they want to use on the boss. And the company will not be attractive to work for. If that person is the owner, then they need to change. If that person has been employed and these complaints maybe get to the board, then it becomes difficult for them as well, because the employees can easily sabotage and say, hey, we're not going to work for this person. So we are going to do our best to make sure nothing is working, because ultimately any board of directors does not look down on or question the employees. They question the CEO, they question the lead, the person, the managing director, the general manager. That's who the buck stops with. So it's important also to make sure that there's proper induction even for these people at the top. Because sometimes we feel, hey, I've made it, I'm the boss, so there are things I don't need to know. But one thing that this pandemic has taught us is the importance of peer-to-peer learning. Just sessions that are going to make everybody who's working in that organization understand what their role is. Because one of the things that businesses were struggling with was staying afloat. What resilience strategies do they need to put in place to make sure they don't shut down? Because we saw so many companies shutting down. We saw so many companies also laying off people. So what happens to those people? So as soon as everybody understands what their role is, whether you're the boss, whether you're just a shop floor, whether you are, the driver, messenger, or whatever role you play. So these peer-to-peer learning sessions and that opportunity for learning brought teams together, because there were trainings on performance. training on communication, training on mental health. So this peer-to-peer makes everybody understand what their role is in knowing that I need to support Pearl in doing this. I need Cathy's support in accomplishing this. I need Luisa's advice in trying to. So when all this comes together, then you find that you have an organization that is totally aligned.
All right, thank you so much for that. And you know, just listening to you and you talking about the peer-to-peer learning sessions, it ties in so much with what Cathy spoke about earlier on around sharing our stories of our struggles, so that we all see that, you know, we might appear to be different, but by way of struggles and challenges, we are all struggling and facing the same thing. So it gives us some sort of common ground. So the next question now, I think it's Benjamin that asks that. And Benjamin is asking, what role does the culture of the organization play in women empowerment? Luisa, Pearl,
Okay.
Cathy.
I think Benjamin has also asked a valid question, and culture plays a very big role, because I mean, your culture defines who you are and what you expect existing within the organization. So if you have a culture where women are looked down upon, women are not recognized, then that is what you will see generally within the organization. But if you have an organization that promotes equality, it's also reflecting on where we are as an organization in terms of our demographics, how many women are at the top, how many women are at the middle level, how many women are at the bottom, how can we get all our women, how can we have a fair balance, because it's important to have a fair balance at the various levels. If you have a culture like that, then yes, you'll be able to promote that balance within your organization. So I think culture plays a very, very key role. Thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you. Shola is saying, in case you find yourself working with a difficult male boss who chose to play you down because of your gender and not your competence, how do you handle such effectively? I think Shola is dialing in from Sierra Leone, if I remember correctly. So who wants to have a go at that question? It's sort of similar, but this time it's a man.
I think, I mean, for me, I mean, I've had a similar situation, not for years. I mean, it was years ago, but I have had a similar situation, and I found actually calling it out and giving him examples that I found unacceptable was the best way to handle it. It does take an amount of courage to do that, and I do appreciate that some environments may not, I guess, be best suited to having those kind of courageous conversations. But I genuinely think that's the only way it can be handled. And you know, I mean, in some cases, you know, depending on the behavior that you've observed or you've witnessed or experienced, you know, you might need to also bring HR into that. But for me personally, I preferred to handle it head on with examples and effectively explaining, you know, what impact that behavior has on me, and explaining why it's you know, not acceptable.
Okay, thank you for that. Does anybody else want to add on to what Cathy just spoke about? And that's working with the difficult male boss.
I think, let me just jump in here and say that we're moving towards a place where every business wants to be aligned with the Sustainable Development Goals. So it's all about inclusion, gender equality, and no one wants to be left behind, really. So, and we're seeing a lot of efforts being put in making sure there's a gender balance. If it's in a board, if it's in employment, those things are now being looked at, especially if businesses need to do or to interact or go global. These are some of the things that are going to define whether you're going to make it or not. So even that boss, the male boss who does not want to or is not being supportive, eventually will have to go with the times and make sure that they have processes and policies that are all inclusive. Because his performance will determine where he's going to be. For example, if it's in the business world. If he doesn't have that, then he'll never grow. He will not get, recognition and all that. So I think if companies can embrace, the sustainable development goals as part of their processes, then it means that they will be aligned and know what they're supposed to do. Equal opportunities, equal positions. Everything will just be done in a fair and just manner. So I think the Sustainable Development Goals is also a lesson or a guide that every organization needs to embrace. Because you might be working in Kenya today, tomorrow I could be in the UK. I can't take that kind of attitude there. Or I could be in Ghana. I need to conform. So it's good to use practices or embrace practices that are worldwide, are now being used by companies worldwide, all over.
Thank you very much, Catherine, for that. So Robin says the Grant Toronto Women in Business 2020 report shows that Africa is outperforming many regions when it comes to gender equality. That's interesting. What lessons can be shared from Africa to the rest of the world to improve gender equality? Okay, that's for all of you. Apparently, we're doing much better than the rest of the world. So what can we share from the continent? So Luisa in Southern Africa, Catherine, who has loads of experience across Tanzania, Uganda, and Kenya, and Pearl, my sister in Ghana. So that's for us, not for Cathy. But Cathy can also add her perspectives, but primarily that's for us.
I want to believe maybe in Africa, we've also taken the whole journey very serious. You have organizations that from the board level are requesting for even presentations at each board level to understand the dynamics or the demographics within your team. And they are interested in the development of women. I think now we have a lot of awareness there. We have some groups that are also focused on developing women, and there are programs in place to develop women. So, and you know that women are such that we tend to learn a lot once we share our experiences. So we have a lot of programs out there that are focused on women development, leadership development. So I think to some extent, we've identified what the issue is. We are creating a lot of awareness out there so that women are aware of what is in there for them, how they can develop, how they can rely on the skills they have. So there's also a lot of awareness out there, and we are ensuring that our women have information so they are well armed and can take advantage of the opportunities the organizations have in place. So you have policies that ensure that women are well catered for, and there is that balance. And where there are issues, where there are gaps based on possibly surveys you've done, I notice maybe from my organization, we tend to find out what the issues are, and then we try to find solutions for whatever we've observed. So like sometime in 2019, we had to set up a creche, And there we involved women in the whole decision-making process. So I think some of these things we are doing, creating that awareness, empowering women, maybe these are the things that are making the difference.
Okay, thank you. Catherine, do you want to add anything, or Luisa? Even though we still have more questions.
Okay, just a very brief one.
Yes, please.
I know in Africa we are governed by so many proverbs. I'm not sure which ones cut across the West, the South, but growing up, there were so many proverbs that were being used. And they say, for most women now, we're coming out to support each other. And that is why the success is eminent. There's the Women Empowerment Principles that is being driven by the United Nations and being taught across. So people are embracing this. But mostly this proverb that says, if you want to go far, walk with others. If you want to go fast, walk alone. So you find that women are coming together to support causes that are going to build other women. And of course, in Africa, it has not been easy because women have been fighting for space at the table for so long. It was not easy, and it is still not easy. But the culture has made us realize that women deliver just as well, if not better, and we bring better work environment to the organizations. We had the first woman president in Liberia, Sirleaf Johnson. She was from, and now we also have a woman president, just unfortunately in Tanzania, despite the circumstances that made her get there, but still she was a vice president, but now she's president. So it's just showing that women are capable. If we put our minds to it, then we can do it. If we support each other, then we can go far. And you find that our leadership didn't just start out there. It starts in the home. The man is there, but who holds the family together? It's the woman. She makes sure that everything is okay before she goes to her work. So I believe that we're going places, and Africa is going to rise, and we will have more future leaders or more women in prominent positions in the world as women, because we can do it.
All right. Thank you so much. There's another question here.
Could I say something about this?
Yes, please. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I also think that gender inequality in Africa starts very, very early. It starts, you know, as children, as the young girls dropping out of school, early pregnancies, and I think what we see, the percentage of girls in primary school, and then the ones that reach that, they actually keep going. So the percentage is the same. So it means that it starts very, very early in our case. But then the ones that really overcome those early situations, they do really very well. And we see, for instance, at universities, that in many cases, women actually perform better than men, and we have more gender equality. And also, I think that we do have very strong role models. I think that's what Catherine was saying. So I see that strength now. When you overcome this early hurdles, if I can say, then they take the challenge and they actually do, and they're brilliant. We have very, very good role models. And I think that's this, maybe, I don't know, the fight spirit and the determination. It's really what brings this.
Yeah, thank you so much. And you know, what you're saying actually is the truth. It starts from early on. Even when we look at young girls, even from elementary school, by the time they're getting into high school and they get into puberty and adolescence, we now have the issues around not being able to continue to go to school as often, especially when they're on their periods, and we have period shaming and things like that. So you are right. This thing starts from early on, and wow, there's so many more questions. So there's a question here around being labeled aggressive. Someone wants to know how to speak out and appear confident without being labeled aggressive. And because women seem to have that negative label at the work space when they are standing up for themselves or when they're speaking up and trying to be heard, they're termed aggressive. Any tips? I always say I speak my mind with a smile on my face. And if you think that's aggressive, it's not a problem. It's your choice. You're allowed to have that, feel that way. But I do draw the line at raising my voice. But I have a loud voice. I accept that. But one thing I've realized is that there's so much we say non-verbally without actually saying it. So you can be fair, you can be firm. You can be friendly, you can be firm. You can be extremely firm, say it the way it ought to pass around without even frowning if need be. But I don't know, does anybody else have any take on that?
Yes, Nneka, yeah, so it's more around your body language, because the body language also sends across a lot of signals. So yes, you can make your points known. I personally, I'm soft-spoken. I tell myself I'm quite laid back, but I'm very firm and principled. And that is me. I have some colleagues. Usually what I will do is, if I notice that you've been aggressive, possibly in a meeting, after the meeting, I'll call you to the side and tell you, you did A, B, C, then I think you need to work on that. So it's also we being aware of what is happening around us, being interested in our colleagues. So if you notice that this person is firm, yes, but has an aggressive tone, you can support the person to work on that aspect and then help her shape herself up for the future. Because sometimes because of that, you may miss some opportunities going higher on the ladder. But if we identify some of these things with some of our women, we need to be interested in them and then shape them, help them shape themselves up. So it's more about the body language and the tone, like you said. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Pearl. Anybody else? Yes, Cathy.
A slightly different perspective. I mean, I agree with everything you've just said, Pearl, but just from my sort of experience, I think has been quite different. I think the frustration for me is more, it's less about women needing to change their approach because they might be deemed aggressive, and more that actually we need to recognize as a society, and then certainly within organizations, actually what are we deeming as aggressive behavior? And actually, if your male counterpart showed that same behavior, would you consider him aggressive? Or actually, would you just say that he's authoritative and very confident? And I think that's actually a challenge that I've seen more in the workplace, which I find incredibly frustrating.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Cathy. So those are some of the nuances that we see. And it's the same thing in reporting. It's for us to actually always apply that gender lens. So we stand for ourselves. We say it with a nice, firm, confident, self-confident tone, and we are aggressive. The man does that, and he's assertive. So yeah, you're spot on with that. Okay. There's a last question here in the Q&A before I move over to the chat box, and it's from Luisa. And Luisa is asking, how do you handle showing weakness? For example, you do a task exceedingly well. Thereafter, you are handed over tasks from other people. Now, this may turn out two ways. You will stretch and end up overwhelmed because you have been assigned tasks from other people, or you say the task's a bit too much and you need help. How can one handle this while not showing weakness? That's a good one. Food for thought.
I think there's a level of kind of expectation setting for anyone actually in the workplace. And I think, you know, we can all at times be flooded with too much work. And I think that might require a realistic conversation with the person that's, I guess, handing out the work, and that, you know, there are a couple of choices here. You can kind of do everything, but actually, if we want it done well, I need maybe a little bit more time for this, or I need actually, you know, less work coming in, whatever the situation might be, but perhaps to have the conversation about that you want to do the best job you possibly can, and you want to be given the resource or the time to do that in. I don't know, I mean, that's a very specific situation, not one I've especially encountered actually, or certainly not recently, I'm afraid.
Okay, anybody else?
Yeah, Nneka, for
Yes,
me,
Carol.
it's such a boss is not aware of the fact that he or she is gradually causing a burnout. I mean, it's important that, yes, if you have someone who is good on your team and you know you can rely on the person, you don't overuse the person, you don't overstretch the person. I believe in speaking up. If I cannot add that to my plate, I don't take it and I speak up. I let you know, no, I think you should assign it to other people on the team. If it may mean that you as an individual may support other people or help other people develop their skills so they are able to do their work effectively, you may have to do that. But one, I'm taking on all that and you are not rewarding me for that, you are not recognizing me, I don't think it's the best. Then it means that there is a challenge even with the leadership. But I think for such a person, you need to speak up. And like Cathy said, then we need to agree some realistic timelines. If you are bringing me a lot of things, there has to be some realistic timelines so that I can manage and be more effective. But it's important to even address the issue, because if you've noticed, there's a trend whereby you are being given everyone's job and they are still earning their salaries, they still have their butts on the seats, then it doesn't work. There has to be some discussion around that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pearl. And I think that's my own sentiments as well. So what that means is that for us in talent, we're doing something wrong. So could it be that, why is it that that person seems to get more work? So obviously the person is obviously more effective and more efficient. So did we hire wrongly the other people? So we need to actually have a proper look at the whole situation and come up with something that is holistic and making sure that we're solving the root cause and not just a symptom. That would be my own contribution on that. So there's a question here around vulnerability from Novisi. And Novisi would like to know our thoughts on that because it seemed like a negative connotation, especially when it's referenced to women, though there are various schools of thoughts in leadership around expressing vulnerability in a positive light. So vulnerabilities, being vulnerable. So for us as professionals in learning and development, some of us have had HR roles, we have leadership positions. Do we have any thoughts around that? Because some people view it from a negative perspective, but for some other people, they see vulnerability differently, that, okay, and there's nothing wrong with showing that. And some others go as far as saying it's actually a sign of strength. Anyone have thoughts on that? Yes, Cathy.
I think certainly from a leadership perspective, showing vulnerability is absolutely key to building trust-based relationships with your teams. I think it helps people relate to the fact that you're real and that you don't get everything right. You're not perfect. People can kind of relate a lot more to that, and that's going to build a healthier relationship overall.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, and to add on to what Cathy has said, at the end of the day, regardless of what work you do, we're human beings. Mm-hmm. There's some feelings you can't hide. We're not robots, and we have to work with people around us. And it's important that people see that they can reach out to you, that you feel them, that you empathize. And those are very critical for teamwork. Like Cathy said, for trust. and it becomes easy for people to even come to you for ideas, you know, or just give you ideas because they know when I talk to Cathy, I'm going to be heard. She's not going to just kick me out, or she won't have the time. So it's necessary for anyone who's in a business to actually show their humanness, you know, because you're not a machine. You have to feel.
Okay, all right, thank you for that. And the last question, and it really is the last question, is from Jeffrey Bohan. And Jeffrey says, obviously this entire panel is made up of successful women leaders. As a male who actually prefers female leaders because of their firmness, courage, and fairness, what would you individually say are your keys to success? Thank you very much, Jeffrey, for that compliment. So that's for all of us. So one word. How did you get to where you are? Just one word. We're thinking about that.
Mine is more about a can-do attitude.
Can-do attitude. Okay, I like that.
I think mine is about being genuine, letting people see the good, the bad, the ugly.
Yeah, Cathy. Okay. Luisa, Catherine?
I think mine would be teamwork. It would be like you, whatever situation you are, if you are in a group and if you have people, even it's facing a challenge, if even it's a task at work, someone was talking about, you know, if I'm too overloaded, one solution could be like that. So, you know, don't do it by yourself, you know, bring 3 or 4 people and engage in a group. I think for me, I would say that that it's working with others in a team, making effort and not just.
Okay, thank you. And Catherine?
For me, it's all about imagining the possibilities. What if I don't? What if? So the what if keeps me going, you knowing I need to do more. If I do this, what will happen? So it's just being driven by imagining the possibilities that are out there.
All right. I think for me, it would be authenticity, being authentically who I am. And so just like Cathy said, so the good, the bad, the ugly. And when you're authentic, it's easier to build some sort of trust. And once we have trust in the system, you know, things can fall in place. So when things don't go the way you expect as an employee, you know that it wasn't intentional. Okay, so thank you so much, my panel. You guys have been amazing. I cannot believe that it is 6:18. I will say it at 5. But just before I hand over to my co-pilot, Barbara Jackson, we've spoken so much around our journey as L&D talent professionals, the challenges that we face and most women face. And in having that conversation, some things actually came out. And for me, for those that know me, I have an acronym already, but this was very difficult for me. So it's BECS. So it's BECECS. And the B, the first B, the B there is for best practice. As women professionals, women running our own practices, running our own businesses, best practice and global perspective is very important. So yes, we're starting small, we're thinking big. No matter what it is, in setting up whatever system, let's try and look at things from a global perspective, even though we will take our local culture, our local context into consideration. The E is for the challenge that we keep saying we're facing under the hands of the men. And the E there is for education, educating the boy child. For every man that, you know, is mean, is unfair, is unjust. He was given birth, I mean, he had a mother. So for all women complaining that have boys, what are you doing to stop that being continued in the system? So education, educating the boy child, also educating ourselves. As women with the pandemic, a lot of things have shifted. We're working more from home, we're doing so many things. So we need to educate ourselves around new collaborative tools that we can use that can help us. We need to educate ourselves and unlock some of the biases that we already had and look and see how some of these tools can help us. The C is for culture, and culture is very important. For us as learning and development professionals, it's our responsibility to make sure that the culture that we have within the workplace, so whether we have 3, 30, 300, 3,000 employees, is one that is conducive, is one that allows for inclusion, is one that allows for diversity, and is one that engages at all levels. And then the E is for, the second E is for engaging the various leadership teams that exist in the systems that we find ourselves. That's very important. The practices that we don't like down there, we must engage all the different leadership teams if we want to seek a change. And then the second C is for courage. And I'm thinking whether it was Frank or was a guy that talked about it, or Benjamin, I'm not sure. I'm talking so much about how working with women that have courage, that are firm, that are fair, is always something that he enjoys because everything goes the way it's supposed to. So as women, we must have the courage. And whether they see it as being aggressive or not, just make sure that you're assertive and that you're doing what you ought to do. The S is for structure. The first S is for structure and for support. Unfortunately for us on the continent, I wouldn't say unfortunately, but I think historically, globally, women have been the bedrock of the family. Women have been the hands, rocking the cradle. Women have had that responsibility of raising the children, raising new generation of leaders. And for us to do that in today's world where we are wearing dual caps and having to also work, it means that we cannot do that without structure, without support. And this support can come from different angles. It could be support of your friends. So if we don't have Corona anymore and we're going back to running up and down in circles, dropping children in school, it could be, carpooling, it could be whatever it is, but make sure you have the support that works for you. And then on the other hand, make sure that there's a right structure that works for you. And then the last S, which is really, really very important, is shouting out. Why is it important to shout out? We are being bogged down by stress. A lot of us are burnt out. And unfortunately, we have glorified seeing people saying, oh, I hardly get 3 hours sleep. Oh, I'm so stressed out. And it's a sign of, wow, that's wonderful. He's working so hard. She's working so hard. No. Shout out when you're stressed out. Shout out to your friends. Shout out to your family. Shout out to your support so you avoid going into depression or anything else worse that could happen. So that's it for me. And I'd like to say thank you very much to Cathy, Luisa, Catherine, and Pearl, my sisters from across the world, UK, Mozambique, East Africa, because Catherine is not really Kenya. She's everywhere, Uganda, and then Pearl as well. So at this point, I'd like to hand over to Baba Jackson. Baba is with Rainbow, and Rainbow Consult is one of the pioneers on L&D on the continent, and they are the promoters of the Learning and Development Africa platform. Baba, over to you.
Hi, thank you so much, Nneka, and thank you so much to all our panelists, Luisa, Catherine, Cathy, Pearl. I was excited before this panel discussion, and I think I am even more excited after, because my expectations have been just blown out of the door. And Nneka has already given us such a beautiful summary. And so we are all, I just want to show you, in fact, I was so happy when Pearl mentioned that we need to be abreast with modern times and we need to start going digital. with L&D activities. And as you know, Rainbow Consult and the Rainbow Consult is proud to be the only full business partners of the Learning and Performance Institutes in Africa, which means that we are proud and happy to deliver all of LPI services in Africa. And as Pearl was talking, she was talking about how you have to keep yourself up to date with the trends so you can go digital, so you can take, as learning and development professionals, so you can take your organization digital, especially in these times of COVID. I don't think we are going to be returning so much to face-to-face. Online learning is here to stay with us after this period of COVID. COVID accelerated the shift to digital. And so I would like to introduce you all to the Certified Online Learning Facilitator course, which Rainbow Consult will be facilitating. And at the end of this, you'll receive an LPI certification. So you'll be an LPI certified online learning facilitator. And this course is for anybody who will be delivering or has delivered learning in an online environment or online meetings. And so the details are here on the flyer. You can find also the details of this on our website, www.rainbow-consult.com. But you can also send me an email if you're interested in registering for this course and certification at baba.jackson@rainbow-consult.com. It's good for us to upgrade ourselves, and it's good for us to be with the trend and have certifications that enable us to deliver properly in our roles as L&D professionals. So I'm looking forward to reading your emails telling me about your interest for this course. I'd like to say again, thank you so much for joining us. This L&D Africa community, and my email address has been shared with you in the chat box, and so you can look at it and copy it if you'd like to get into contact. And as I was saying, thank you so much for spending your time here with us this evening. It's evening here in Accra, and I must say that you were a great, great, great audience. And this L&D Africa community is amazing. Whenever we call on to you, you take time off your busy schedules and you join us for these conversations, and you help us to enrich the industry in Africa, to learn from one another. And so I must say thank you so much. And I look forward to our next engagement. For those of us who are not familiar with Zoom, I'm just going to share some details about logging out. On the lower portion of your screen, you should see a black tab, and next to it, you should see a sign that says leave. You can click on leave meeting and you will be well on your way out. Thank you all so much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us. Until we meet again next time, L&D Africa is so grateful that you joined us. To my panelists, thank you so much. We've had an amazing time. You've been the best. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. COVID permitted, I'll
bye.
With Luisa in Mozambique, and Catherine in East Africa, Cathy in the UK, and my sister Pearl. When I come and see Baba, I'll see you as well.
Yes. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.